Hello, friends. I wanted to just take a little bit of time today on the Catholic Pleb podcast to talk to you about Trinity, because we just had a beautiful solemnity of Trinity Sunday, and I really wanted to focus on devotion, because I think it's so easy to lose ourselves in the complexity of the Trinity that we make it a head affair, an academic endeavor more so than a devotion. So the first thing when talking about the Trinity is I really want to dive into what two people, Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, has said before us. And I think these two things are just, they're very enlightened to the mystery of the Trinity, and they can help us enter into the devotion. So first off, with Augustine, we have him and his description of God, and he describes God as love. I mean, we also know this from, it's in, I believe, one of the letters of John is where it is described that God is love. And then Augustine goes on and says, well, you have to actually have three things in order for love to exist. And without these three things, love can never exist. And those three things are a beloved, a lover, and the love between the two. And that if you remove any one of these, you can't have love. And this is a beautiful, enlightened view on the Trinity. And then Thomas Aquinas, what he would say is that God is being itself. So when you marry these two things together, it must mean that if you really want to exist to the fullest of your life, you have to love to the fullest existence of your life. You have to participate in the Trinity and that beautiful exchange of love. And one thing that I, really wanted to point out here is that it's easy to talk about these things, but then how do we practically, invite God into our lives? There are several things we can do. We can pray, right? That's always good. You can read pious works from the saints. That's good. You can read the scriptures. You can spend time in silence. There's a bunch of practical things that we can do that, we ought to do, but sometimes we don't find ourselves doing. What I find to be the most assured thing is to always invite God into our lives in all the small moments. Because I think it's a beautiful reflection for us to think about that Christ lived for 33 years, and within 30 of those years, he was not public in his ministry. And 3 of those years out of the 33, that's when he was creating the disciples and gathering them together, and he was creating his church, and he was performing miracles, and he was going in, and he was giving speeches. But 30 years, when he was not separated from the Father, or he was still experiencing relationship with the Father and that exchange of love that is the Trinity, he was just doing everyday things like you and me. And that is a beautiful thing that we can take away from the devotion. That we can enter into the Trinity by merely inviting God into the mundanity of our lives. No matter what you're doing. It can be sitting in traffic. It can be simply waking up and the struggles of waking up. It can be right before doing something that maybe it's a task that causes you anxiety. But to share in all the moments of our life with God. That's what we're created for. And that is one beautiful and easy way that is always accessible to us to be able to share in that Trinitarian love. To be mindful of our Lord. Also, Augustine would say that prayer is just lifting your hearts and mind up to God. So that whenever we think of him, we're praying. And this is how he would say that we would pray always. But just think about it. Our lives, how much we crave for something more in our lives. We know that we were made for heaven, but we're still here on earth. But one way that we can make a heaven on earth is just by inviting God into every aspect of our lives. And man, How transformative that is. When you invite God into your lives, think about all the things that just automatically change. If you have a headache, you invite God into your life. You're no longer just experiencing a headache and focusing in on yourself, but now you can enter into Christ in the garden and his passion. Whenever you're in traffic and, people are frustrated in traffic, no longer are you just in traffic, but you're able to exercise God's love and forgiveness by being able to offer a small blessing for everyone there. That whenever you're doing a task that you find mundane, like maybe cooking food, that you're participating in one of the, I believe it's a corporal act of mercy or charity. You may have to correct me on that one, but you're feeding the hungry. That everything you do now completely changes when you invite God. No longer is your life now just the ordinary life that we live, but now your life is the life of a disciple. What you do is now holy acts that have redemptive power for the rest of the world. I mean, think about Our Lady. How did she become Our Lady? What kind of person did God choose to become our mother? But someone who went through all of life constantly in communion with our Lord, constantly giving everything up to our Lord. Mother Angelica, when she would talk about Mary sometimes, she would think about how her graces would triple and quadruple because she was constantly giving herself to the Lord, and the Lord, of course, is never outdone in charity, and he would bestow more onto Mary. But then our Blessed Mother would not leave it there. She would again toss it back to our Lord. So you had this beautiful exchange of love and charity and virtue. And I think that's something we're missing in our lives today. We're missing that divine life. We're missing the divine discipleship, And all we have to do to access this is continuously invite the Lord. Continually to walk in communion with him. So my friends, on the days passing, that most beautiful day of the celebration of the Holy Trinity, I invite myself because, I'm not perfect. And I invite you guys to please, call on God. Invite him into your lives. And to experience that beautiful exchange of love that is the Trinity. God bless you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Catholic Pleb podcast. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Just launched a locals channel, so if you want to engage more with us at the Catholic Plebs, then please join us there. It's going to be a platform where we share our meditations, we pose theological questions to one another, and share poetry. So if you're looking for some fraternal engagement that's based around the faith, then please join us there. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us on the various podcast platforms that we are available on, then please leave a review and help us grow the channel by sharing this podcast with other people. Thank you so much. God bless.